Hello. So no one's home right now, even though my side is telling me that people are home and they're judging me. I heard my dad leave, so I'm alone, and I thought I would try to talk about the story I'm planning because I feel like it might help me reflect on things, to just talk to myself. And I don't know whether to do that in English or in Swedish. I think I'm going to do it in English. I don't know if I'm going to write it in English or Swedish either. Right now, I'm considering just writing it in Swedish best I can, and then maybe a bit of Swinglish, and then translating it to English afterward. I know my friend also offered to help translate it, and she's really good at English, so that could be fun. But yeah, Gravity Falls and the Magnus Archives crossover fanfic. I've never written a fanfic before. I don't know why I'm even planning to do this, because I know myself, I have ADHD, and I will not probably barely even start with it before I completely abandon that shit. I was trying to write fanfictions based on Entirety of Spirit Phone, like a couple months ago, and I planned it out. I wrote about a couple hundred words, planning for each song. And then I never got to writing it because that required some research that is pretty annoying research, so I never got around to doing it. But yeah, I feel like actually sitting down and talking about it would maybe help me figure things out. And I guess the reason I'm talking English is because I want this to feel like I'm talking to a friend on a Discord call or something. Yeah, the Magnus Archives and Gravity Falls crossover fanfic is because I was watching Gravity Falls, and at the same time that I was developing a big hyperfiction on the Magnus Archives, and I got to the episode Society of the Blind Eye, and that has so many similarities to the Magnus Archives and the Magnus Institute in particular, and like completely like the complete opposite of what the purpose of the institute is. So I thought it would be fun to write something small, just how those two would rival against each other. And then I kind of expanded on that as I realized there's a lot more things that correspond between the two universes and would be fun to write about. Right now I only have like very loose plot points, and then some specific scenes or chapters that I know all of the details of. And if I never get around to writing this, I do have a couple of scenes that could stand on their own, that don't necessarily deal with both shows combined, but only expanding on one of them. Yeah, I have a lot of things I need to think about, questions to write down, and I've heard that talking helps, and I feel like it might do. I struggle to talk sometimes because autism, so I might run out of breath, and yeah, but I'll try. So some things that I know so far. The Magnus Institute is in London, in England, obviously, and Gravity Falls is all the way up in Oregon, which is completely different parts of the world, and I still want this to stay true to as much canon as I possibly can, so that makes it a bit hard. But then I realized that in 2008, the summer of 2008, I think June or July, Gertrude traveled to Dakota to kill and dismember John Kilbride and then throw him into the hole, the buried pit, to disrupt the ritual. And I looked up which state is Dakota in. Dakota is in Washington. And which state borders Washington? Oregon. Which is great, because I haven't actually checked the dates of statements and recordings and stuff. I'd like to think I've looked pretty thoroughly through Gertrude's wiki page. I haven't checked, but I'm pretty sure that we don't know what Gertrude did for the rest of that year, which means there's a lot of space where she could have made a stop in Oregon before taking the flight back to England, which is great. And then I'm guessing somewhere between 2015 and 2016, Julia Montauk and Trevor Herbert traveled to the USA, and they found the Book of the Trapped Dead and Gerard. So a second part to the fic would be really fun if we had Trevor and Julia traveling to Gravity Falls, and just because there's a lot of monsters there to hunt, and they would probably consult Gerry quite a lot and like ask him questions about their Dracula of the week. And I want to write more about like their dynamic and how they work when hunting, but I also would think it would be really fun to write about mainly tell the story of what they're discovering in Gravity Falls and clues that they discover and don't really pay any mind to through the questions they ask Gerry and like the conclusions he draws from what they tell him. Because I want to have that as like the main focus. Also just Gerry learning more about Gravity Falls and the traces of Gertrude unfolding more and more, and like him realizing there's a way bigger connection to things than Julia and Trevor does, because they're just hunters. They don't really care about that stuff. Then Julia and Trevor ultimately gets captured by the Society of the Blind Eye, and their memory gets erased. But the thing is, you can't erase the memory of a book. So Gerry knows all of that stuff, and then they kind of move on. They go back to Pennsylvania and like around the country. I'll do a time skip, of course. But then in 2017, as we know, they meet and kidnap John Sims, and John Sims speaks with Gerard. And I'm thinking the conversation stays pretty much the same, but Gerry mentions some things offhand about Gravity Falls, which leads to John going there to investigate for himself. And that's where we kind of stray away from, where we kind of diverge from the plot of the Magnus Archives, because we know pretty detailed when he got back to the UK. He took the flight immediately from, I think, Washington DC to the UK, so he couldn't have made a stop in Gravity Falls, but I'm going to change that. So those are the main things that I really want to include. If that becomes like multiple novels worth of work, which it probably will, because I like to be very thorough and maybe describe things a bit excessively. I like to really... That's also what I feel like is, for me, the appeal of writing fanfiction, is that I want to less focus on action and more just sitting and indulging in specific scenes and specific moments, and just what characters look like, what they feel, how the tone is, which is the things I love most about writing in general. So all of these things would be a lot of work. So worst case scenario, I'll stop it after Gertrude's visit. But there are a lot of more things than just that. First of all, of course, 2012, the summer of 2012, when the world goes weird because of Bill. And this is something I'll need to do like a lot of research for and try to figure out. I've only watched Gravity Falls once so far. I finished it less than a week ago, and I have not watched any theory videos or like read the Book of Bill or anything like that yet. So I'm mostly going off of what I understood from the show alone. And with Gravity Falls, I want to take a lot more creative freedom than with the Magnus Archives, especially since I want to have the tone be that of the Magnus Archives, be a lot darker and slower and gruesome. And Gravity Falls is so silly and whimsical. I don't want that. But so I've been thinking, Gravity Falls, there's a lot of weird shit happening there. The easiest way to explain that is like a really big hilltop road. Especially if it's a really big hilltop road in another dimension that sort of bleeds into ours. Because that's the great thing with the Magnus Archives and like writing fics based on it, is the multiverse is canon. It is very significant in the canon, which means that opens up for a lot of ways to cop out. I don't know how to use the term. A lot of... You can get really hacky. But the main powers that I see in Gravity Falls are the eye, obviously, the spiral, the web, and then as like the main one would probably be the extinction. Because what Lucas said really stuck with me, that like the extinction would hypothetically behave differently to the other fears and seek to exterminate us and the world as we know it, and then seek to create a new species that could fear extinction in turn. And I want to play around with the extinction as like... That feels like the easiest thing. The extinction has taken over another dimension, like, fully. And all that is left is these monstrous creatures like Bill and those other weird ones. And now, with the help of the web, they've created a rift to this dimension and is trying to take that over instead. Or like as well. That feels like the best way to go about it, as they just appear and through all of the fears, just completely turn the world as we know it upside down. And it is definitely the fear of extinction that is the main one, and it definitely uses all of the other fears in that extinction. And another reason I want extinction to have such a big play such a big part in this is because I would really like an excuse to have Adlar Decker. I would like to write a letter from Gertrude to Adlar Decker, because we've only seen his letters to her. I want to play around with how she would write a letter to him, and like talk to him about the things in Gravity Falls being connected to extinction. That is one of the things I would really like to write, is a letter from Gertrude to Adlar Decker. At least one letter. Probably not more, because it seems really annoying to write. Another thing, a really small detail that I would love to include is, especially in 2008, before Wendy started working there, and before Mabel and Depper went to spend the summer there, when it was just Soos and Stan, that they're both very deeply marked by the lonely, and how they kind of don't cope with that, or like try to cope with that, but fail, and how the entire Mystery Shack just reeks of the lonely. Would be really fun. I was thinking about adding like a detail that Stan has a postcard sent from Mabel and Dipper and their parents, like on his fridge or stovetop or whatever. But instead of it showing the picture on the postcard, Google reference, on the front of it, he has it turned the other way around, so we see the text written on the back instead, because it's written by, how old would they be? For 8 turning 9-year-old Mabel and Dipper, and they've doodled on it and been really playful and added stickers, and he would rather look at that than look at the picture on the front. I feel like that would be a really... You could word that in a way that is pretty gut-wrenching if you play around more with how he's doing and how bad he's doing. That'd be fun. Another really tiny thing. I guess not tiny, depending on how I decide to incorporate it in the story, but having Gertrude see the journals and like having it be sort of a culture shock, because she's used to Leitners and books like that being really evil, and these just, they aren't. They're good. I think, I don't know enough Gravity Falls lore, but like, you don't die by reading them at all. And then the big thing to figure out is how to incorporate the events of 2012 into this whole thing, since I want to have things returning to normal afterwards, and like hopefully no one really remembering what happened in the Institute, and of course like Jonah not knowing about it, because I want Gerry and John and Julia and Trevor to rediscover it a couple years later. How to do that? But I feel like that two more small things. I would like to have Gertrude ask Fiona and Emma, I think her name was, to investigate something from things she finds in Gravity Falls, just because I would love to write something about Emma and Fiona and how their dynamic is, and like we all know what happened. What happened during those investigations with Fiona fainting and all. I would love to write about that. And then I would really love to write about how it feels to be watched by Gertrude. Because I'm going to write in third person, and I know there's a name for this, I don't really remember it, but like third person that isn't focused on a specific person's thoughts and feelings, but like is more omnipresent or whatever. And I want to switch between how Gertrude and like John's stuff, how they see the world and how other people see them. Because I would love to write about how it feels like to be watched by an archivist and have kind of a different spin on it than the Magnus Archives has. I had some daydream about how it would be fun to describe it as them not staring directly into your eyes. How it's creepier if they're staring at... They're not staring at your... They're not making eye contact with you. They're staring at you. And like staring at your hands and what you're doing and stuff. And just being watched and how it feels to be compelled and stuff. With more metaphors and stuff. But then something I really want to do is I really want to describe a Gertrude dream. 1 second, I'm going to look at a message I got from my mom. Okay, Jesus Christ, where was I? Gertrude's dreams. I would really like to write about them. Her archivist dreams, like the ones Jonah described in Mag 120. And just including most of the statements that we know she read, and then and now we finally get to my next point, how they start getting muddied and weirder because of the Society of the Blind Eye, when she gets closer and closer to the present. Because the main reason I actually want to write this fic is to explore how the Society of the Blind Eye interacts with the eye, and which powers it uses, how it affects the beholding, and like all of that stuff. So I really want to do some more research about, I don't remember what they called it, obscurification, I don't know, but like as Gertrude was really good at hiding things from the eye, and like hiding things in general, and I understood like she used some magic for that. I don't think there was ever really an explanation for what that was, how she did that, which I want to learn about more, because I feel like they're using that. And also I'm also really curious about how does the camera hide from the eye. I'll need to rewatch the episode with Celisa. How does the stranger, when they kidnap John, hide their location from the eye? How does People's Church of the Divine Host hide things from the eye? Because when John tries to know things about it, it's only darkness. Because I feel like all of those, they might be the same method, and it would be great to know about that, because I feel like that's what they're using. Of course, the one who founded, I want it to be really connected with the dark, especially, mostly because the logo, or yeah, I guess the logo, like the symbol for the group, is pretty much the exact same as the People Search for the Divine Host, if I've understood it correctly, and because, well, I was re-listening to Manuela Dominguez, the first of Manuela Dominguez's statements a couple of days ago, and that gave me a lot of inspiration because she talked about how the dark is pretty much the opposite of the beholding, as putting enlightenment and like putting things to light, discovering things, science, and learning is the opposite of the dark. The dark wants to obscure things and hide things, and so I want it to be closely tied with the dark. And we know that Fiddleford MacGucket was the founder of the Society of the Blind Eye, and I really don't know what to do with his fucking name, because his name is Fiddleford MacGucket. I want this to be serious, and I told that to my friend. She hasn't watched Gravity Falls. She suggested renaming him to Ford MacDuck or something, to make it a little bit less silly, but he can't be named Ford because Stanford would make that really confusing. So I'll need to make up my mind about that, because I want the prologue to be him, because he was working together with Stanford to learn more about Gravity Falls and how it works. He was a scientist, and obviously he would be marked by the eye. Not be an avatar of the eye, but like very closely aligned with the eye. And then he goes into that portal, sees some shit. I don't really know the lore. I don't know what shit he saw. I would love to. I hope there isn't actually canon about that, because I would love to make that up, especially if my alternative dimension where the extinction and the web are the rulers is going to work. I want to decide what he sees, but he sees some fucked up shit, right? And then he quits and he invents the Society of the Blind Eye. He gouges his eyes out to leave the beholding. He gouges his eyes out, and I want that to be the first scene of the fic, because remember that room in the museum that there's a hidden door in, that is just full of eyes and connects to where the blind eye operates, and it's just full of eyes. I want him to sit in that room when he does it, and I want to describe all of the eyes. I did some research about what texture eyes have yesterday, mostly as a bit, because the search history was really funny to have. Are eyes wet? How do eyeballs feel like in my search history? But I wanted to sit in this room full of eyes. I want to describe the eyes really disturbingly, and I'm saying eyes instead of eyes. I hope that's clear. I want to describe it really disturbingly, and then I want to describe him having a monologue talking to these eyes, because the reason he does it here is he knows they're watching, and he wants them to watch him do this, because he wants to give them a big fuck you, because he's ensured that after he does it, and after he enters the secret door, the beholding will no longer be able to see him inside that room. So he kind of has a cool cool fucking monologue saying like, hey, fuck you, I've seen horrible things, I'm traumatized because of you, I want to destroy you, with whatever it takes, here's a spoon, I'm going to shove it inside my eye sockets. But then I really want to figure out, I really want to have the focus be on how the Society of the Blind Eye affects, mostly how it affects, like, avatars. The archivists, Gertrude and John, and Elias, Jonah, Magnus, Bouchard. Because that would be fun. I don't want the tool they use to be like a machine that just erases your memory, because it feels a bit boring. I want it to more have something to do with obscuring it from the powers. So, I would like to have I would like it to be a bunch of people marked by different fears working together in this group. Also, since we've seen that all of the members are people who are pretty frequent characters in Gravity Falls, they can't all be blind. They can't all have gouged eyes out. So I need to figure out another way to hide what they're doing from the eye, without permanently damaging their eyesight. But I want to have people marked by different fears in the mix, like a hunter to an archivist. I would love for them to just have like kidnapped one of the old undead archivists and just have it there with all its eyes. And I'm imagining the old archivist as like having the same cryptid chanting as Jonah in season 5, and just not really conscious, and just have one sit inside their headquarters and just giving them information about seeing which people have been touched by the fears and like seen things, and then have like at least one hunter in the mix also who is able to track down and capture these people, and then they erase their memories, asking to give them a statement, kind of again to mock the eye, and as a fuck you said, you'll never hear the statement because we're erasing that shit. And I'm thinking that they're trying to do good, but what they're really doing is making research as to prevent Bill Cipher's emergence so much more difficult for Gertrude when she's there, because I want that to kind of be one of the main conflicts. She's trying to get information. I haven't figured out, I forgot to mention, she stays at, there are no hotels in Gravity Falls as far as I'm aware, so she stays at Lazy Eye Susan's place. Lazy Susan, whatever she's called. Because I would think that would be really fun. They're both old ladies with vastly different personality traits. And I want more Lazy Susan rep. And also with Lonely, I don't think I said that. Soos, I see a lot of parallels between Soos and Martin, especially him living with his grandma and stuff, taking care of her. But Mm, Gertrude tries to get information. I haven't really figured out why she goes to Gravity Falls in the first place. I have a feeling she just knows that's where she's supposed to be. But whether or not she knows why, I'm not sure about yet. What her motivations are. She just knows that's where she should be. There's something she needs to figure out. But she tries to ask around in the city, ask a lot of different people about stuff. No one knows anything, which is really weird because she's spotting these fears everywhere. It's just crawling with them, all of the fears. And the eye seems to have a lot of presence, but yet there's no one seems to know anything. She tries to ask people for statements, but no one knows anything, and that's because of this is the Society of the Blind Eye, and we also know that she tried to remain human as much as possible, not ask direct questions if she could avoid it. She didn't like compelling people. She tried to stay human as much as possible, and I want to make that really difficult for her when the presence of the Society of the Blind Eye sort of drains her more quickly, and she needs new statements more quickly, but no one has any. And how that kind of messes her up a bit. Frustrates her. I would also love for her to kind of have one encounter with the Society of the Blind Eye and kind of both learning more things about obscuring things from them and her teaching them about that stuff. Intentionally or unintentionally, I'm not sure. But eventually she returns to the UK, and here I don't really know what to do. Because Jonah obviously will have some opinion about this. Will he know that it's about to happen, or is this? It is connected to the eye, but is it too much extinction for him to extinction and multiverse things for him to really take an interest in Gravity Falls? How much is he able to see while she's there, and does he care? Are things I'm curious about, because we know that the extinction kind of happens, but then it's limited to only Gravity Falls, and then it's reversed, and they kind of agree not to talk about it, but they still remember it, and he still has to know, right? Because I started planning this before I had watched the Weirdmageddon episodes before the finale, and I kind of knew that would mess up my plans in some way, and it did. Before I came up with the extinction things, I was thinking it was going to be more similar to a Ritual of the Eye, with all of the fears playing into it, like the one that Jonah ended up doing. And I was thinking that he would be interested in stopping it, because it's kind of... He's still very close with the beholding, but he wants to be the pupil. The pupil of the eye. And it's kind of... concurrent, how do I say that? Rival, I guess. I'm looking for the word, not really rival, I think, but when two companies are having a competition against each other, whatever that word is. But it's kind of a rivalry. But that doesn't really work. I'm thinking no one really anticipates what's about to happen or how suddenly until it does. And I don't think the web in this universe knows anything about the web in that universe. And I think it would be fun if the web kind of is really thrown off by that whole event. And perhaps it would be in the web's interest to keep that whole thing a secret. Yeah, to cover all of that up and make sure that it doesn't reach the Institute, because why? For this to work past 2012, there needs to be someone interested in keeping it all covered up. And also the Society of the Blind Eye just being completely caught up in the wrong things and ending up mörklägga, keeping it in the dark. A lot of things that would be useful if they weren't. I would also love if somehow the things that John ends up discovering when he's in Gravity Falls ends up derailing Elias' whole ritual. Which would be fun if he's kind of diverging from the path that Jonah wants him to take and diverging from the path that Annabelle wants him to take, and just if his thirst for knowledge just prevents Elias' ritual from working somehow. He has a lot of forces pulling him back, but also something keeping him interested in Gravity Falls. Something really catches his eye and he needs to know. That'd be really fun. Another really disturbing ritual. Another really disturbing detail that would be so fun to write, and mostly because I want to feel evil as fuck, is to write about the first time Gerry is summoned by Trevor and Julia. I wonder if, both because it's fun to explore the properties of the Book of the Trapped Dead, because are they aware that they're trapped in a book before they're summoned for the first time? Are they conscious? And also, like, what does the book look like? I don't think it's really established if Gerry looks like a ghost when he's summoned, or like how it looks like when they emerge. That will be so fun to write. But then, all the fan art I've seen of Gerard speaking to John is in him wearing he has his teased hair and guyliner and his leather coat and looking all goth and cool. He died from a seizure in the hospital, and he'd been in the hospital for a couple of days, I think, and he had a brain tumor. He would not be wearing that. I want to write him as ghosts traditionally are written, wearing the same clothing and looking the same as when he died, Lemon reference. And I want to make that really disturbing. I want to write about him trying to wipe off a stain of blood and saliva that he had coughed up from his hospital gown, but to no avail, because it's ghost clothing. I want to write, I don't know, I'll need to do some research about both cancer and seizures and stuff, but I'm guessing if he had a seizure, he probably got some bruises from that. So I want to write about that, and like, just, he's not doing well, and just absolute terror and disgust from being interrogated by these people and being trapped in that book, and just, that would be so fun. Haha. And the thing is, I feel like a story like this only works the best if you know what's going to happen all the way through, and there is foreshadowing and things planned out. But I never tend to write like that. I tend to have a strong image of how it's going to begin, which I did describe how it's going to start. I also know that the second, or technically first chapter, since that was a prologue, is Gertrude throwing Jan Kilbride into the hole. I want to start a chapter off with making comparisons of the dark pit, which honestly is, I've understood it as like really big and deep, and compare that to like the vast and the fear of heights and big empty spaces, and how the hole should technically fit into that, but doesn't, because the darkness in the hole is different to the darkness in space, and it's more pressing. It doesn't leave space for your lungs, whereas the space in space leaves too much space for your lungs. Something like that, and then just write about the expressions on the passerbys when they see Gertrude standing there, that she's holding a bag which contains Jan Kilbride, and then draw comparisons to the hole acting like a stomach about to throw up when Jan Kilbride's corpse is thrown into it, and then the earthquake, blah blah blah, to then, well, just to establish when this is, why Gertrude is there, and that she's pretty close to Gravity Falls. So now it's about to start. When I read a story, I generally also know roughly how it's gonna end, or at least what the reveal will be at the end. However, I've never really written a story longer than like a couple of pages at most, and generally not a lot of things happen. I never write more than like maybe once a year now that I'm in school and I'm taking the courses that I'm taking. I get to write way more, but still, short stories generally tend to be very short for me and focus more on description than actual things happening. I've never written or tried to write something this long before, and I don't really know how it's gonna end. What I'm trying to say is, I'm not used to planning out storylines beforehand, And I don't know if I should, because I feel like there are a lot of things I really do need to know before I start that I don't. But I also tend to just, I'm the kind of person to just make up things as I go. And I might do that. I don't know. Another thing that if I can come up with some way to include it, I would like to include is like a meeting between Simon Fairchild, Peter Lucas, and Elias Bouchard, just drinking some wine and being evil rich white guys and just talking about the extinction, because obviously they all talk about it, they're friends, and just they all have some different viewpoints on it, and just talk about whether or not it's imminent and some things they might have heard of in Gravity Falls. Eli's not really being able to see anything. I wonder if you can make it so that he doesn't, because when John can't see something, he knows that it's something out of the ordinary. It's a blind spot. That means it's something interesting there. But I wonder if it could be something ordinary, that the eye is only able to see the mundane things, because that's what people remember. And then all of the supernatural aspects, or at least the supernatural aspects that are more frequent than anywhere else, are just, those are the ones that are hidden. Because that could work. That can make a lot of things a whole lot easier. But I just want to include a scene where Simon, Peter, and Elias just yap about extinction and whether or not it's something to be worried about, and I just want to hear how they talk to each other, how they interact, and how they're kind of a bit flirty, a bit passive-aggressive, a bit, they hate each other, but also they're friends, and, like, work together. I would just love to write something about those three interacting also. But I guess that's, like, all things I really know. I like to, after info dumping, I like to just come up with a couple of questions that I should keep in mind that need answering. I guess those would be, and things to look up, I guess those would be, how does the Society of the Blind Eye work? Which power are they mostly aligned with? Which I think is the dark, but how do they obscurify things? I feel like that's one of the bigger questions that would be a good idea to ask Reddit about. I'll probably ask a lot of things on r/the Magnus Archives. Another thing, how does Gravity Falls work as a hilltop road? How does the other dimension work? How does the extinction work? And how does it kind of, why does it want to spread to this realm, and why does the web of that universe want it to spread over to this one? And why are the events of 2012 just forgotten? Why does nobody remember 2012? I don't remember 2012. I heard the world would turn to hell, so compared to that, well, I'm doing well. And how does it end? Which things do John discover? Then also, there's a huge gap when Gertrude is there, like, which people does she interact with? In what order? What things does she discover? But those are the kind of things that I feel like I would prefer to just make up as I go, and then maybe puzzle together. Then there's also things like, do I write it in Swedish first? I think so. I only write in Swedish generally, mostly because my vocabulary is way stronger in Swedish. In English, I know enough to be fluent and to make myself understood, especially when I'm not talking, because I feel like this is pretty hard to understand, but that's just... I'm just like that. That doesn't have anything to do with English necessarily. But generally, only the simpler words come to mind when I'm grabbing something. I tend to forget the words with more nuance and more fun words. I also really like to play around with sentence structures and just like wording things in a more fun way, and like how to affect tone with and stuff, which I can't really do in English. So I feel like at first, at least, I'll do it in Swedish and then try to translate to English best I can. Then hopefully I'll get used to writing more and more in English and transition to only doing that. And something I'm worried about, something that will be really hard, is to not get bored of the project too quickly, because I get too caught up in research and planning. Like this, I've been speaking for a fucking hour. Because something that I feel is really important to me when writing a fanfic is to make sure that all of the characters behave and speak in a way that is true to who they are, and how they're shown to, what people are shown to be in the show that they're from. Like, I feel like Gertrude especially will be really, really hard to write in character, because she's such a complicated person. That's gonna be struggle, but that's also a big reason why I want to do this, is I want to practice dialogue. I'm really bad at dialogue and characterization. Generally, when I write my short stories, I tend to make, if there's a character, it tends to be very anonymous. It's a person with, I get to know them as I'm writing them, and it's always a person that has ideas about things and like has a personality, but I don't like giving characters that I come up with appearances and names and ages and genders, because I want to focus on their feelings and their thoughts. And I need to learn not how to make characters from this, obviously, but how to write with characters that already are a certain way and have their actions, not write the character to fit the actions, but write the actions to fit the character. If that makes any sense whatsoever. And just practice dialogue generally. I don't think I'm that good at dialogue, so that's something that will be a good opportunity to do. I feel like pacing might be really hard, because this is a very action-heavy idea, and I like to write really slow and dark things. And from the scenes that come up so far, it feels not really like a flowing story and more like different scenes that I think are fun to write, patched together to follow a narrative. But hopefully I'll learn things as I go. I see this as more of a learning experience. Practicing things. Because I love writing. And I need to do it more often. Then a fun thing is I'm still waiting to get that fucking invitation for Archive of Our Own. I sent my request for that almost in half an hour. It will be. No, I think it already has been exactly a week ago. So they better let me in soon. But I discovered by going to the search bar and typing in different usernames and seeing which usernames existed. There are so many names that are not claimed by anyone on Archive of Our Own. I could be Gertrude Robinson. All of these, I could be pretty much any character from the Magnus Archive without any numbers or weird spelled letters, just verbatim their names. Because they're not taken. I could be John Sims, not Jonathan Sims, but John Sims. I could be Gertrude Robinson. I could be Jürgen Leitner. I could be Peter Lucas. I love Peter Lucas. I could be Annabelle Kane. And Jürgen Leitner would be fun. But I think I'm going to go with Annabelle Kane, just because I'm weaving my own little web and making my story. But yeah. I don't think this helped a lot. It helped me procrastinate my schoolwork quite a bit. But I'm going to try to... There has to be a way to, automatically get rid of the silence in this recording, just to make it a bit shorter, and then to have to convert it to text in some way and clean it up a bit. I feel like it's a bit easier than taking notes. It might be. At least I've been talking this entire time. If I would have been writing for an hour, I would probably have spent half of that staring at my screen. As I predicted, it is getting increasingly harder and harder to speak. But yeah, I guess if I find myself alone at home again, because otherwise I'll be really self-conscious. But if I'm alone again and I have more things to add, I might make another recording or add on to this. I guess that did help me a little bit. I've planned the first let me see here. The prologue, the first chapter, the second chapter, and the third chapter. Half of the third chapter. If it remains the order of events that I'm kind of thinking will be now, I have enough of a plan to start writing, I think. I'll also just make that Reddit post asking about how to hide things from the ceaseless watcher, I think. And now I really have 5 different pieces of schoolwork that I will not have the energy to do soon, and that need to be done. So guess I'm going to have to start doing that now. First. If I end up uploading this somewhere on YouTube or something, just as a way to get some validation from people, then I guess buy, well, and otherwise buy myself. Yeah. I hope I didn't forget. I hope I didn't forget anything now. I'll be so pissed if I remember not mentioning something. I'm just going to check my document where I have all of my notes so far and all of the quotes from the Magnus archives that I feel like would be good for this. I'll see if I've missed anything. I don't think so. Okay, here's the list. I think I mentioned everything.